This is how to replace your brakes on a Chrysler Town & Country. This one's a 2014 with the 3.6 front wheel drive. So first of all, you're gonna get 19 millimeter, take off all your lug nuts. You don't wanna take them off in the air, just crack them loose on the ground and then put your jack under and lift it up, and then you can take them all the way off and get your wheel off. If it gets stuck, you just give it a hit or you kick it. Don't hit the metal, you wanna hit the actual tire. Once you get your wheel off, this is your rotor. If it looks good, you probably don't need to replace it. Just make sure it's not at the minimum thickness. You can search it up, or usually it's specified along here on the top side or wherever on the side. But all right, so what you're gonna do now to get your caliper off, you're gonna get a relatively thick screwdriver, flathead, and then here in your caliper, you're gonna kind of stick it in there. What you wanna do is you wanna get it somewhere where you can pry it, because what we're gonna do is compress those pistons right there. There's two of them on the front here. There's two of those. You're gonna compress them just enough so we can get our caliper off. All right, you can see once you have your caliper loose, you'll be able to move it just a little bit. You can actually hear it now. I got this one actually pretty loose. This is about the higher end of how much you'll need it. And then what you can do is right here, there's this one. I believe it's a 13 millimeter. You take that out. And then there's this one down here too on the bottom. You're gonna take that one out. And if it does just sit there and spin with this other piece, you grab onto that and you'll just hold that with something like either a vice grips or a wrench if you have one big enough. Then you can just get that out. And same with this one. Whenever you do get that out, it's good to have like a bungee cord. Like I've got this one here. You're up on the springs. Just run it over and under on this one, because this is a longer cord. And with the weight of this caliper on it, it will sag down. You don't want to put too much strain on the brake line, but if it's resting a little bit, like if this stretches down more, that's fine. It's not really gonna hurt it. You just don't want to tear out the fittings or this crimp here and make it leak. Once you get those two out, those 13 millimeters, your caliper might fall off of here, but just don't let it pull on that brake line too much. You should be able to rock it a little bit and be able to get it off like that. You can kind of use these as like handholds. You just rock it a little bit and then you get it off. And I'm gonna hook it right onto there. All right, once you got that hooked, what we're gonna do next is compress these pistons. So what I've got here, I've got this C-clamp. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna use these old brake pads as like a flat surface to press on. And then you can just put the other side of your clamp against that caliper there, the back side of it where the pistons are. So get these pads out. There's these little springy clips here. And if you break those, it shouldn't matter, because you should have some new ones with the brake kit if you got a whole kit. I'm gonna be doing the rotor too here, so we will end up taking this bracket off, this whole thing here. So to get your brake pads off, you can really just do that. Get them out like that. Just however, just pry it with a screwdriver. You can take those right out. And then for these clips, what I do, I get a screwdriver and you just put it like that, and then you can just tap on the top of it and you can usually pop it off. It's hard to do with one hand. But then those clips just pop right off. If you don't have new ones, what you will want to do is use a wire brush like this one here. A relatively strong wire brush. You don't want them to not really do anything. And you'll just clean those off. But you really should use new ones every time you do a brake job. All right, so I took the rest of those clips off. It is just easier to do it with this still on the vehicle, because then it won't really be moving around while you're trying to punch those out. So what we're gonna do to compress those, the pistons here, if you have a backing plate on here, usually just easier to take that off because it's just going to slide around some. A lot of the time they will just fall off, like on this one that just fell off. It's not really a big deal if they do fall off because they kind of just sit on there. Like, it's back on. You just shake it some and they usually fall off. But you will want to have that on there when you put your new ones in. They don't usually fall off as easy on the new brake pads though. So for this, we're going to get preferably one without the backing plate or with it. It really doesn't matter that much. A lot of the time I do put the pad surface that way as long as it's not contaminated. But realistically it is best if you put it with the backside towards the pistons. Kind of how it goes when it's on the car. So we're going to have it like that. And then we're going to have the C-clamp go all the way around. And then I'll come back when I get that on. Alright, so I got that on there. It's holding itself there for now. And you can see how it's pushing at a little bit of an angle. Preferably you would have 2 clamps. I also do have another thing. So if you have one of these, it's just like a lever and it contracts. You can also use these. They usually work pretty good. You can use that as your second clamp. That's what I did. And so you can just get that on there. And while you're doing this one, you also want to do the other side. You really do want to try to keep both pistons relatively at the same. You don't want to be pushing from just one side. And you see those little pins there, right there? You don't want that to be hitting or pressing directly on the piston if possible. That could put an indentation in there or break the seal. So we're just gonna do this all the way up till till these pistons are pretty much flat. The clamp gets more resistance and this one will just stop going. Once you have that all the way in, and you do want it almost all the way completely flat with that, then you can take off your clamps and things. And it should be pretty much just like this, about that flat. Alright, so now we're going to take off the entire caliper. You don't need to do this unless you're doing, well, it is good to do it if you're doing brake pads only too, because you will need to wire brush these and it's pretty hard with the rotor there. So we're going to take this off, and we're going to put in our new brake hardware, and we're going to put the pads in, caliper on, and then you just put everything else back on, like wheel, and then you're pretty much done. Alright, these are a 21 millimeter. What you're going to do is you're just going to put that on there. And then if you have a breaker bar, you can use that, like I got that one there. What I'm going to be doing is I have this swivel socket and impact. And I do have the wheel turned. It's just easier to use this too with it. So I'm just going to use that. This one's a lug nut socket, but you got this one. I'm going to use that. And then you can hold your impact in here. You kind of move this out the way somewhere. You get your impact and you just get those off pretty easily. Alright, so I actually didn't end up needing the swivel socket. I just put the impact on there. And if you do use extensions and swivel things and all those types of stuff, it will take power out of your impacting force. So once you get this off, what you're going to do, make sure these slide pins move smoothly. They're not like crunchy. You want to make sure they do go all the way out and in smoothly. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pop them off like right here. Kind of hard to do with one hand again, but you just like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to clean off all of this old grease on there. And you're going to try to get it out of there too, but it's not really a big deal. So this one's already good. I already did this. I forgot to record that part. And then what you're going to do is you just put these back in. You do want to put quite a bit of grease on there. and then you can just do this and it pops back on. All right, so next step before we put in our new brake hardware, if you have a wire brush, you're gonna get that. This one here I've got. What you're gonna do is you're gonna wire brush all of these surfaces here, like there, down in there, and up here too, on all of them, just like that. You wanna make sure all that is smooth. You don't want any brake dust on there, because that will prevent your hardware from fully seating into where it should be. All right, once you got that all cleaned up, usually the top side's not bad, so that's usually still shiny. These bottom ones, they're not gonna look perfect, but as long as the surface is good, then you're all good. Then what you're gonna do, you got these little clip things. These are gonna replace those old ones that we took off earlier. You can see those ones are old, they don't really look the best. So we got these new shiny ones. And so on this car, see it's got a little springy tab there. You always want the spring bit on the outside. So this would be sitting like this on the car. This is the driver's side. And then you're gonna have this clip sit in there just like that. And a trick for these, you can see the design there at the bottom piece is not the same. So it's a lot easier if you get the bottom, or well, the outside part, that one right there, on first. And then you can put it like an angle, a little bit like that. And then you can just tap it straight and seat that the rest of the way. When you're getting that put on, you want to be really careful not to bend any of the pieces. Like you don't want that to be way out to the side or whatever, or these little tabs, because those do grab on. So for this car, the reason it has those little springy parts is when you have your brake pads in there, it's going to pull them back from the rotor just a little bit. All right, once you get all of those clips installed, should all be oriented like this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take this rotor off. So what you're gonna do, I got a big hammer here. So what you're gonna do, this one's like a 5 or 8 pound. You're gonna hit between the studs. This is only if it's stuck on, otherwise you can just take it off. You're gonna hit all between the studs. Then if that doesn't work, what you're gonna do, or well, what I usually do, hit it from the back. You don't want to hit that guard there, your brake dust guard, because that'll damage that. You're gonna hit it from the back here. Preferably you wouldn't want to hit on the actual rotor surface, but we are replacing this one, so it doesn't really matter that much. So you're gonna do that, and you should be able to get it off. I really had to beat on this one. You can see how much rust fell out of it. Then you can take your rotor off. Right there on the hub is where it usually seizes to right there. Most of the rust actually comes from the inside of the rotor vanes, because that's where the surface never gets worn. You can see where I was hitting it from the back there. And then here, dented this one up pretty good, so it's good that we could get that one off. Then you're gonna set that one aside, and then you're gonna open up your new one here. So these rotors do come with an oil coating to stop them from flash rusting. There's actually a spot here on the driveway. I left one out in the rain one time, and that thing rusted quick because it is just a bare metal surface. Rotors will flash rust like that. It's not a problem really, except when they're in the box and not being used, because then the surface will get rusty and it'll never get cleaned off. All right, what you're gonna do next, don't do this on pavement. You're gonna do it on like gravel. You don't really want to do it on grass either, because there's a dead spot over there from last time I did this. You get some brake clean, kind of any brand. You can also use WD-40, but that's not preferable. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna just spray down the brake surface, and then use a rag or paper towel to wipe it off. And that'll make sure you get all the oil off of it. And then you can take this back to the car. Oh, and if you are doing front and rear, an easy way to tell the difference is the front ones have the vanes in them. The rear ones are just one piece without that opening in the middle. So set this back on. Kind of hard to do with one hand again. Alright, so once you get your rotor on just like that, you get a lug nut. I usually do it on the bottom because it rotates like that when you just let it sit, because most of the weight's on the back. So you just tighten this up. All right, once you get that on, that's going to hold your rotor from wobbling too much, and you'll be able to get your caliper on. So for that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do, where is it? All right, so the caliper bracket here, we're going to put that on first. Goes over the rotor just like this on the back side of those. And then you're gonna have your two bolts there that are just gonna go in there. And that's gonna hold this just between the rotor. This should never be touching your rotor once you have it tightened down. Once you have those snugged up, I'm gonna be using a breaker bar. You could use a torque wrench too. That's preferable. You wanna tighten these to, don't take my word for it, but approximately 80 foot-pounds on each of those. All right, once you got those tightened down, you can take this lug nut off. And then what we're gonna do is where those little clips are, we're gonna put in the actual brake pads that go into there. And those are what actually pushes against your rotor to provide stopping force. So over here I got these ones. I already did the other side, so that's why a lot of this stuff is opened. So at least with these ones, both pads have a squeaker on them, which is that little thing that scratches the rotor right there. Whenever the pad surface gets low, that's going to start scratching it, and that's what makes that squeaking noise that you usually hear when you're braking, at least if your pads were low before. The ones I took off here weren't low really at all. They were still like 60% life left. The outside one more like 70. And it is usually the inside ones that wear more, because that's what your pistons are directly pushing on. So for these, this is kind of tricky, but you're gonna slide it in just like this, right into there. You can kind of just set it in your first one at least. So you got that in there. And then you're also gonna do the same with the top. And you wanna kind of twist it into place here. Just like this. And this is kind of hard to do. But what you want to watch for is you want to make sure that like right in there, that pad is catching on that. You don't want that to be happening, because that'll bend your clip if you try to twist this pad. So I'll show you once I get this one in. All right, so I'm actually doing this outside one first. Another way you can do this is kind of just get it past those springs. And then you can just slide it over sideways. You don't have to try to twist it as much. This is about the same difficulty as the other way, but it does still work about the same. So however you want to do it, just kind of get your things in and checking to make sure everything's going through, and it fell out. But once you get them in, they should slide freely in those guides there. You could also put grease on this too. That is a good idea if you do have squeaking after you change it. You don't really need to, but yeah, sometimes I do. Alright, so once it's in, it should be able to wiggle a little bit. When you put it all the way up to the rotor, it should move a little bit. You don't want that to be stuck in there, because otherwise you may have a dragging brake. The pad won't spring back a little bit. Like that's what those little springs are for in there. Those hold the pad back. So yeah, you just want to make sure it's not stuck. Make sure that can wiggle. And same with the other side. And so once you get this one in, same thing. You're gonna make sure you can wiggle it a little bit. Otherwise, you're gonna have problems. And then for the next step, we're gonna be putting this caliper back on. So what you're gonna do for that, you're just gonna get this and you're gonna slide it over everything kind of like this. And you wanna make sure these things are on the inside, your slide pins. Now I do have the hook on that one, so we're gonna have to take that off before you can get the top bolt. So you just get these started. Make sure you get them both started just a little bit before you tighten them down all the way, because you do want to be able to adjust it to be able to get your other one in. Once you do have one, you can unhook your hook and it should stay just fine. And then you can get the top one in. Alright, once you get those in and tightened down, usually you want them around 35. Again, don't take my word for it. Yeah, just about 35. And then you can put your wheel back on. Get the lug nuts about as tight as you can with them on here. I prefer not to crank on the drive shaft with the wheel in the air, but it's a drive shaft, so it should be fine. Usually just get them about as tight as you can while the vehicle's in the air and set it back down, and that's when you torque your wheels. Usually about 125 foot-pounds, but that's just an estimate. And then you're pretty much done. Make sure you get your spring thing back too. You don't want to be leaving tools in the vehicles. If you are going to turn the wheel while you have your car lifted up, you really want to have a jack with wheels on it. Don't crank the wheel really fast, because that could cause problems too. Just turn it kind of slowly. Don't go a whole lot at a time. It is a lot easier with it straightened out to get your wheel back on. Alright, once you got your wheel back on and torqued down, you're all good. And that's it. Subscribe.